Hey everybody, thank you very much for joining us once again for Polygon's E3 video coverage. I'm Griffin McElroy. Joining me is my brother, my colleague, my co-host, Justin McElroy. And joining us from Bandai... What was that move?
I don't know what this move was. That was like a new... This is like our 80th interview, so I'm just mixing it up.
Joining us today from Bandai Namco is Mike and Nick to tell us a little bit about Dark Souls 3, which I am overjoyed got announced, and a little bit surprised got announced during this year's E3. Thank you both for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So I guess just to start out, the Dark Souls fan base is super passionate. Maybe one of the most passionate fan bases of any video game franchise. But with inside of that community, there's, I feel like, this big rift between people who prefer Dark Souls 1 and people who prefer Dark Souls 2. How do you go about pleasing everybody with Dark Souls 3?
Well, if I can take that. So Miyazaki-san's directing Dark Souls 3, and he's made it very clear that he does not want to take a mashup of 1 and 2 and make a giant Dark Souls 3 game, but rather take the best of 1 and the best of 2 and put it into 3. So things like an interconnected world, so anything you see off into a distance you can travel to, he's going to take the best of both games and put it into 1. So it'll be good for both fans.
Is it difficult to please an audience that is that, that is that sort of particular about the things they want? I remember when we reviewed Dark Souls 2, which I adored, I was kind of surprised at some of the hardcore Dark Souls 1 fans that were saying, oh, well, now it's too easy, or oh, now they've changed my favorite thing about it. Is it tough having an audience that is that persnickety, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I think it's always a challenge to please, everybody. They all have their own idea of what they love most about Dark Souls. Some people love the single-player story, to play by themselves and kind of go through that. Some people love the PvP multiplayer, kind of want to see that expanded out. So, the team at From Software takes all that feedback into consideration and tries to hit on all the key things that the community are asking about and talking about. So for Dark Souls 3, as Mike mentioned, we had the interconnected world again, the shortcuts and the huge world, expansive world. And we're not talking about it yet, but we'll have this thing, the great multiplayer that people love, things like that, things they liked about Dark Souls 2, like the little things like being able to see weapon durability on the main UI and bringing things back. So
I think they also, and they've had the benefit of being able to work on, Miyazaki-san's not really ever been away from the project from Soul series. He's always, that's his thing. But I think they got a lot of benefits and learnings from working on, the entire series, as well as, recently the Scholar for Sin and Bloodborne coming out. So I think there's a lot of learnings there that they can kind of apply for Dark Souls 3, which is great for the fans.
Mm-hmm.
It's been really surprising to me to watch. I can't think of another franchise that has had this sort of, I guess, grassroots evolution in popularity that the Souls games do. I remember when the first was announced, it seemed like very much a fringe sort of game, and then it's just the weirdest thing. You watch them, it became very much about one person getting another person to play them and sort of shepherding them through. What's it been like sort of watching that sort of popularity grow, and what would you attribute it to?
For me, I think number one, it's awesome to see that. It's great to be on a project where it's so adored by fans. I think part of it is just the genius of Miyazaki-san, how everything you got to figure out. Nothing's kind of spoon-fed to you. You got to have to uncover and discover everything, including the storyline. And so when these guys play it, the ones that didn't give up, they're like, this is an awesome sense of accomplishment. And then they're trying to figure out the story and piece it together. So they get on the community forums. They start saying, hey, what do you think of this? This is what I think. And then everyone starts giving their, conspiracy theories of what they think the story and the lore is. And it just naturally just became a very organic community that just grew together through this, challenging type of gameplay and that group sense of accomplishment. Like, we're the ones that figured it out and we know what's going on. So I think it's cool to watch.
I read a 90-page Bloodborne lore deep dive that was longer than some books I've read. So I would agree with you there. One of the things I love most about the From Software games are the RPG systems, the customization systems, the progression systems. But it always feels like there are certain character archetypes and builds that are a lot weaker than others, and some that are a lot stronger than others. And I've seen some previews, including our own on Polygon, about how things like archery is all of a sudden a more viable build. Is From Software trying to bring all of the different ways that you can play a Souls game and make them all a little bit more viable?
Yeah, one of the big things for Dark Souls 3 is making a wider range of viable character builds and being able to have players kind of play the way they want to play. So, as you mentioned with archery, they made some changes with the short bow that we're showing off this week at E3, where you kind of it's more viable with movement, so you can instantly start throwing arrows out after rolls. There's a rapid fire thing you got now. It's good at short range.
That's a good point that you mentioned the rapid fire, because there is a cool not to cut you off, but there's a cool gameplay mechanic that they now have in Dark Souls 3 that hasn't been there in the past. This sword fighting action ability, where if you have the short bow, you can do this rapid fire. That's its kind of key unique sword fighting ability. And then when they use the great sword in the demo, you get into this ready stance, and you can deal like a heavy attack, obviously leaving you a little bit vulnerable to enemy attacks when you do it. But when he did it during the demo, everyone was like, "Ooh, that was a cool attack." So
yeah, those weapon abilities are kind of alternate attacks for your different weapons. So you have to two-hand your right-hand weapon to kind of use these abilities. So it's a trade-off system. And that is giving players, more options with different weapons and more varied attacks per weapon. So, for instance, you get a scimitar, you can dual wield those. You can get this wide sweeping attack. They're quick to take out like large groups of enemies, weak enemies. May not be as good for like knights. You may want to use a greatsword, like Mike said, for the knights. So, experimenting with different weapons and different builds. We're not talking about magic just yet, but there'll be some differences that we can look into, talk more about later. But yeah, definitely more viable options for people.
What's the approach in storytelling in Dark Souls 3? It's been sort of a little bit under the surface in previous Dark Souls games. Is it going to come to the surface more in Dark Souls 3, or will it still be the same sort of situation where you have to go hunting for the plot, as it were?
I think you always have to. I think that's part of the essence of the Souls series, that you have to earn the story. It's not really spoon-fed to you. So I think it's still going to be there, but there is an extra increased storytelling element for 3. The world is kind of fading. All the fires are fading, and it's coming into this kind of ruined state. And so when you saw in the first look demo, you could see, ghouls on trees. It was very dark and gritty, kind of atmospheric landscape. But then you also had this like really beautiful golden skyline across everything, and you see that in the key art as well. And that's by design. Miyazaki-san didn't want it to just be all dark and gritty. He wanted to have some beauty to it. So I think his phrase was twisted beauty. So it's a great looking game, and that's kind of the story of 3. So you don't have this kind of linear story progression from 1 and 2 and then to 3, but there you will have to uncover it, you will have to earn it, but there's a little bit more in 3.
One last question. One thing that has been pretty surprising but very welcome, because again, I'm a big fan of this franchise, is how From Software is almost turning it into an annualized franchise. Like they're getting really good about turning out these games in really quick succession. What's changing at From Software that is allowing them to hit that pace?
I think. Well, aside from having a lot of magical gnomes over there working 24/7,
I assumed it was a gnome situation, so it's funny that you said that.
It's actually pretty amazing, because there was Scholar, and then there was Bloodborne, and then now we're coming out early 2016. So it almost seems like, is it even possible for them to do it? I know there's a lot of speculation about it being a late holiday 2016 or even 2017 release. We're pretty amazed by it too. I think basically once people are done with a certain project, they just all start shuffling onto Dark Souls 3, and they've just kind of been working on it the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Any worry about sort of fatigue with this sort of game? To the burning people out on the Souls series?
You mentioned it's kind of annualized. Dark Souls series has been every 2 years. There's been 3 games in the past 5 years. I think From Software is still the only developer really making these types of games, so the output of these titles is just what they're able to put out. So there's not too much else like it out right now, so I don't think we're too worried about fatigue.
I don't think so. I mean, it's also good that Miyazaki has always said that he doesn't want to make anything just because he thinks that's going to sell well, or he's being told that's what fans want. He has a very unique vision. He's a creative genius that really knows what he likes, and it happens to be something that really resonates with a lot of fans out there. So knowing that he's fully immersed on 3, we know it's going to be something that the fans are really going to appreciate.
Cool. Mike and Nick from Bandai Namco, thank you so much for dropping by to tell us a little bit more about Dark Souls 3. When are we going to be able to actually see it running?
Gamescom will be the first hands-on event for us, so you'll see a lot of gameplay. That'll be our big gameplay trailer as well, so you're going to see a lot of behind-the-scenes kind of looks.
I will book my ticket to Germany today to make sure to be there.
Yes, and we will see you there.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you guys both for joining us.
Well,
Thank you. I'll do the Justin sign-off here.
There you go. Exactly.
Thank you all for watching at home. Stay tuned. We'll have lots more E3 coverage for you throughout the week.